Hey, Andrew.
Mauro,
Good to have you on the podcast.
thanks for having me.
So, we're going to be talking about Malta today. You are the president of the ReLeaf Malta organization that's working to legalize cannabis in the island. So, that comes to my first question. How did ReLeaf Malta come about?
Well, ReLeaf Malta came about 2017 by a group of, I would say, fairly young activists that realized that posting Facebook comments or Twitter comments is not really going to get us anywhere. So they put together this group basically to have a focal point of our struggle, let's call it that. And also to be able to dialogue with government in a more official way. I personally joined the group in 2019 because when it was being set up, I had some personal work that projects that I was on. So as soon as that was done, obviously, then I was asked to join. So I mean, I was involved from the beginning because there was always dialogue between us. So yeah, I have been president since 2019, where we sort of decided then to take a different direction. One from sort of moving towards advocacy, because we wanted to make sure that not only did we want things to change in Malta, but we also wanted to present to the government how we felt things should be done. So it was in 2019 that we released our main proposal for a regulated and legalized cannabis market. This was sent out to all government and opposition ministers. I obviously made lots of meetings. I met with them and gave a presentation to make sure that they understood it. We made it very easy to read. We put pictures in it and everything. Politicians don't have a lot of time,
Yep.
especially when it's an issue like this, which has been put under the carpet for such a long time. But we were lucky to have a good response from the present government, who had also mentioned that the time was right for a national discussion on the topic. So we've been involved a lot in obviously these discussions. We are the only organization, the only NGO that is pushing for this reform. There are dozens of other NGOs of Christian groups and Catholic groups and things like that that are totally against any form of reform. But as luck had it, we had some elements within the government that were listening to us. They believed us. They believed in what we were saying, especially the younger politicians, because they obviously know and they get it. I like to say some people get it and some people don't. So these people then started to do their own sort of lobbying within government, and I think if we look at where we are today, I think we've done some pretty good work.
Yeah, for sure, because you managed to get success quite quickly. So, what lies at the core of your success here?
Well, I mean, like I said before, we wanted to change from activism to advocacy. What I mean by this is, so that we had a lot of calls to sort of hit the streets, which, by the way, we have done in the past, but we felt that as there was this open channel with government and dialogue was happening, we felt that we should sort of focus more on research from our part, especially to see how we can what role policy has, not only towards the people who consume cannabis, but everyone in general. How a regulated market will be looking at the health benefits as a whole, not only for people who use or consume cannabis. We also, in the meantime, made lots of contacts, friends like you guys, and other sort of charities, associations that are on the same level throughout Europe. And we keep in close contact, and we discuss ideas. And this has been a lot of help for us, because we've been able to take this directly to government. Obviously, we do our own research and we put everything into what we feel is the Maltese context. And it obviously, when you put things into the actual local context, makes a lot of more sense than just thinking about it globally. So these were the things we focused on, and I think were part of, if not, a big part of our success.
It's good to hear. Yeah, I remember we also, with our foundation, we ended up sending in our comments on the proposed changes, and yeah, we're happy to do such a thing.
Yeah, because with I might have skipped that part. The government did in summer release a white paper. So
Yeah.
the white paper basically is there for people to read where the government is heading and submit their contributions, be it positive, negative, or maybe even further proposals. So it was very good to have you guys and others that are working in sort of hard for policy change to submit your proposals, and I know for a fact that they were read, because I've spoken to the people that were reading these submissions. Apparently, we had 350 submissions to the white paper, and according to the minister, most of them were in favour of what the government was proposing. There were sections of society that were saying, listen, we need to go a step further, because at that time there was no mention of where one can actually obtain the product from. So yes, I mean, home growing was something that we didn't give up on. We fought very hard, tooth and nail, for that to get in. So we're very glad that did. We also had mentioned sort of some form of social club to be set up, so people can have a safe space and also be able to acquire their product without any sort of hassle from law enforcement. And so after the white paper, then when they did go to the bill, they actually did take these considerations forward, and they did actually add the fact that sort of NGOs can open up associations to actually move product with their members.
Yeah, because when you read the whole thing, it looks like there are certainly good things in it, but in the proposed regulations, there's also some things that are quite bizarre, like the personal amounts that you can have in your home, especially when you're growing, it's quite low. And also that I've learned that these clubs that you're talking about, that in the proposed regulations, that you cannot sit in them. There's no social consumption side. Do you think either of these changes or proposed changes that they will be changed and made better, like be adjusted?
Fortunately, it's a bit like yin and yang, for every positive, there's a negative, it seems. Obviously, we embrace the idea of having these associations, but at the same time, not letting people consume, not providing a safe space is obviously something that, to us, as you can imagine, does not make sense at all. But having spoken to the minister, I can feel that he's holding back because of the, let's call them sort of prohibitionists, So he's got to skirt around those people, and he also has to keep in mind, the treaties, the UN treaties that we're a signature of here in Malta. So there is a kind of fine line from his side, where he's trying to balance things out. But obviously, we reacted to the bill that came out, and obviously our reaction then had some proposals as well, which spoke about, yes, the amounts basically. So if we're going to be allowed to grow 4 plants, but we're only allowed to have 50 grams of dried cannabis as possession at home, So it doesn't really make sense, obviously. But people making the law sometimes, you can tell they're not cannabis consumers and don't understand these things. Also, the fact, of being outside in the public, they've given us sort of 7 grams possession, 7 grams and under will sort of not be prosecuted, not be fined. You just keep walking, the cannabis won't be confiscated. Then between 7 and 28 grams, then that's where you basically get fined, and with the possibility to have to appear in front of substance tribunal, where obviously you're going to have a chat about your cannabis use. These are all things, obviously, that we've spoken about, and the things we'd like to arrange before the bill goes through, just not to create these sort of possibilities for law enforcement to take advantage of, because this is the main thing we've been fighting from day one. Just to remind your listeners, in Malta, we come from quite a strict prohibition. You might have come across some cases that hit international headlines where a certain person was growing some cannabis. I mean, I think he had 5 mature plants and some cuttings, which totaled, 12, 14 plants or something. And obviously he was treated as though he was some big drug baron, and he wasn't allowed to leave the island because he was a foreigner. He was kept, he had to sign the bail book. He was waiting for his case for a very long time. And then eventually, when his case did come forward, he ended up just, going straight to jail with a 10.5-year sentence. So we have cases like this going on all the time. People getting arrested left, right, and center. Undercover policemen going to festivals and arresting 70 people in one night. So the change that we're seeing is really going from black to white, if you know what I mean. It is really a big change. But obviously we like the minister is saying, he'd sort of like to make a law in Malta where we can be some sort of template for other countries maybe to follow. But of course, with these amounts, with the 50 grams at home and 7 grams possession, I don't think we're really going to get there. So obviously, there's still more work to be done. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
What I just noted though was a small thing you said about that your government is scared of the UN treaties and stuff. It's something that's also our politicians and governments likes to use. However, our comment usually is when they say something like that. It's not like the blue helmets are gonna come to your country and stop you from doing it. It's not like they did this with Canada. They're not doing this with the United States. They're not doing this with Uruguay and all the other countries that are loosening their laws. So I think, it's not something to be really scared about, these UN treaties.
Yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, you have to remember that it's very easy for the UN then to pick on a small country like Malta. If we did have to go for full legalization, we don't have the power of Canada or the states within the United States. So I can understand to a certain extent that we need to make this introduction to a regulated market in maybe some steps. So if we look at it overall, I think it's a great step in the right direction. But we will keep campaigning for a safe space for people to be able to consume. Yes, why not at the associations? And obviously, maybe some parties and festivals can get special permits to, especially if they're outdoor, to make sure that people can consume, which they're going to do anyway. Without the fear of prosecution.
Yeah, for sure. This is one of the greatest joys, to be at a festival and to be able to consume cannabis. That's I can tell you from my personal experience.
I can tell you from my personal experience too. But the thing is, yeah, look, this happens all the time. But I mean, to have undercover policemen come in and drag you away and take you to the lockup, and it is humiliating,
Yeah.
especially sometimes, they might just have nothing better to do and pick on you and make you drop your pants and bend over. We've had cases like that, just for CBD, let alone if you're smoking, or using, the real stuff. So we need to see how the police are going to tackle this. Are they going to say, okay, look, we're taking these steps because we feel that it is a waste of police resources. They definitely have other things to concentrate on. Are they going to understand this, or are they just going to say, listen, you've given us the rules, it's 7 grams, you got 7.5, and we're gonna screw you, basically. So we want to make sure that the police are on the same wavelength here.
Yeah. I was just also thinking about how do they just speak about cannabis, or is it also will it also includes like making of edibles and the and concentrates and all the other kinds of products you can make from cannabis?
To be honest, it wasn't mentioned, which was a great thing, until some association came up. I think it was the Employers Association, or another one that came up and sort of started questioning what can be available. Now, I spoke with the minister about this topic, and I was very clear to him. I said, listen, I mean, if you want to if you want to start banning already, I said, then basically, your drug barons and your traffickers are just gonna, thank you for it. So I said, you either want to deal with the black market, or you want to go halfway, or you want to do it right. If we're going to start banning edibles, then, and you're allowed to buy 50 grams a month, which is what is being proposed from your association, then someone's just going to start making his own edibles, and he's going to start making his own concentrates, and sell it on the street. So you've come back to square one. So I made it a point that listen, if these associations are going to be able to provide, they need to be able to provide cannabis and all of its derivatives, because that way we can make sure that it's tested and that we get the dosage right, especially on edibles, so people have the information. People can then ask about it, learn about it. You can teach them to go slow. I think it's always the best way to have something which is sort of tested in one way or another. Obviously, we want to make sure that there aren't too many expenses imposed on these associations. Otherwise, it's the more expenses imposed as when it comes to testing and packaging and stuff like that, then obviously then would just mean that the price of cannabis has to go up, and then you're just back to square one again. So I made it a point that the government needs to help these associations, because at the end of the day, these associations and the government want the same thing, and that is to stop the criminal market.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a discussion that's been going on here also because, like in the coffee shops here, you can buy hash and you can buy weed, but are not allowed to, or they are not allowed to sell the concentrates or all the edibles that you see from the United States, for example. But yeah, some interesting things you mentioned also about this, about the testing and the packaging. Indeed, is this also this is also apparently then going to be part of the regulations for the sale in these clubs?
The government has proposed is to put together an authority, a cannabis authority, basically, which is going to be drawing up the regulations around these things. We want to make sure that, on this authority, there are people that are actual consumers, so they can understand the community. Because if we're going to just have a whole bunch of prohibitionists on this cannabis authority, then they're just going to make it impossible. So yes, we want testing. We mentioned testing in our proposal back in 2019, because we want to make sure that people have good quality, clean cannabis. But we want to make sure that if this testing has to be, the government can pay, or the authority can actually pay for this testing, so they can come out and they can randomly test your products to make sure that you've got a margin of THC to CBD levels which are correct. Also make sure that it's not tainted and has no pesticide and heavy metals and stuff like that. Good, clean, good quality cannabis is what we want to make sure that our consumers will get. And obviously, like you mentioned, the packaging as well is something that was mentioned, but we are not too keen on, because at the end of the day, what do we want to do? Just throw more plastic into the world? No, we don't. We want to see, people maybe coming with a jar, which they can purchase maybe for the first time. Upon the first purchase, 50 cents or €1 to get your little jar, and just keep bringing it back every time you want to replenish. We were also thinking of ways on how we can then label that, so maybe we could stick a label on your jar each time you consume, have a little code on it which you can scan with your phone, which will give you all the information about what strain you're using and how it was grown and who your grower is, and and maybe some safety tips as well. And these are all things which we're going to be putting forward to the authority, and we just hope that they're going to be willing to listen and willing to move forward in sort of in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure, good ideas, and I hope this will all come true, because there are things that you're now explaining that I've also been thinking about. I also wrote an article once here in the Netherlands in Dutch to the Dutch cannabis consumers about and the industry itself about indeed the problem that we have with all the plastic that's going around. If you go nearby any coffee shop in the Netherlands, you're bound to find the packaging outside on the street, and it's very bad advertising, for cannabis as a whole. And I personally don't believe that cannabis or a plant should be in a plastic baggie. It's all the other drugs are already in a plastic baggie. Why does this also need to be in a plastic baggie? So this idea that you gave, like people can just bring their own jar, or they can buy a jar the first time and they can just bring it back. It's an excellent idea that I've also been thinking about, or
Yeah,
suggesting.
but like I said, sort of then we need to work out a way, obviously, to make sure that we can also provide the right information with the cannabis that will be bought. So that's why I was thinking of maybe whacking on some sort of label or sticker which is easily peeled off, when you return. So at least you get all the information. I think it's important. It's something we campaigned for a few years back. And it was basically, let's get the label on cannabis. We want to know, because I mean, you live in Holland, so you 99% of the time, probably, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, you know what you're consuming.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, but I mean, if you walk into a coffee shop, by the way, I've only been to Holland once, and I didn't really visit coffee shops that much because my partner is not a consumer. So
Yeah.
I went in and bought a pre-roll, and just took a couple of hits whilst we were walking around and going to the museums and stuff. But it did tell me what strain it was. Now, if it was right or wrong, I don't know. But you could buy the strain there, so that we obviously don't have here.
Yeah, but I will make a comment about this, in that the coffee shop doesn't really know what it is. The people who are selling it to you, the bud tenders, they don't really know what it is. It is illegal to have your cannabis tested in the Netherlands.
Right.
There is no product information. There is no values of THC or CBD. They don't know what is the strongest. If you ask them what's the strongest, they will tell you something. They will probably say haze, but it probably is not.
Right.
So no, sadly.
No, good. I'm wrong. Thanks for. I mean, you learn something every day. I mean, I know, for example, in the States, from what I've been following, especially in places like California and those type of dispensaries in
Oh
Colorado,
yeah,
they are sort of well labeled. So I'll make sure I don't use
that's how it
Holland
should
as
be.
an example when it comes to labeling.
Yeah, but sadly it is not, because it's illegal to. Literally, the law says that you cannot do anything to cannabis, as in you cannot make it into anything, and this also counts for the testing.
As we're on the subject of your country, I mean, I think our minister yesterday came out with. I was on a program with him, and he came out with something which I think was a little bit of a nudge at you guys, because he said, and I quote, he said, "The question I keep asking is, do we want the sector to depend on criminality and the black market? Government reply, is no. And then he also said that our cannabis reform goes beyond tolerance. It's honest. So I know that you guys have some sort of tolerance law, but what he's trying to say here is that we're not just going to go for some sort of tolerance law, but we're actually going to put it down in a bill, so to be federally controlled.
No, in that way, Malta is definitely going further than the Netherlands ever has.
Mm.
Because here, there's even Dutch people who think that they're allowed to grow 5 plants, but that's not. It's not law. It's not. There's a police guideline that says up to 5 plants, we will not prosecute you. But that doesn't mean that you can grow 1 plant or 5 plants. If the police sees your plants, or if they get, or if your neighbor complains about you, they can come and take your plants away.
But that's it, right? They won't take you to jail.
No, but they can kick you out of your house, or where you're renting your place from. They might kick you out, or they might put you on a blacklist so you can never get social housing again. Even the mayor can decide to close your house, even if you're not growing, but if there's things inside your house that you might be able to grow cannabis with, then they can close your house for months.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, one of the things that was mentioned as well in this bill was that, if you're going to be growing at home, it cannot be seen by anyone, your neighbors, or obviously then they mentioned children. You have to keep it away from your children, which is pretty obvious. But what I was seeing something about Luxembourg the other day where it said kind of the same thing, but it sort of said, if possible, try and keep it out of sight. And I thought that was pretty cool, the if possible part, because a lot of people, a lot of people here, like me, we live in an apartment. I just have a front and a back balcony, where I could possibly, grow a plant or two, and then the rest, would have to be. I'd have to have some sort of setup in the house. And what am I going to do? Use my kid's bedroom. I don't have a very big place to grow cannabis. So yeah, neighbors over here are, the stigma is still massive in Malta. So I can imagine the neighbors just wanting to put you in shit, if you know what I mean. So calling up the police and creating trouble. So we're going to have these cases for sure in the future. So this is, this is our dialogue with the minister. We're trying to avoid these type of things happening in the future. And then there needs to be some sort of leeway, and there needs to be some sort of general direction. So like, okay, we've got rules, but if we're just going to go a little bit over, then have a little bit of mercy, and let's not go back to the way we were, where you're going to get strip searched and have your name in the newspaper, and wait for your court case, which could take 10 years, and not allow you to get a new job, or there's so many things that happen to you when you get busted, which people don't realize, especially the prohibitionists in Malta. They don't realize, because they don't use it. They might not know anyone that's gone down that road, that has been busted, basically. And the thing is, when this happens, you have some people who may be a little bit older and stronger that will say, screw it, I don't really care, I'll go to court and I'll fight this and get on with their lives. But there's a very big part of these people that sort of start to go down a downward spiral when it comes to mental health, because they might have people in the family, like the parents, that are just totally against. And we've had cases where the parents have called the police themselves on their own children, making things worse. And these are people I mean, who have got in touch with me, and they were telling me their stories, and they're super bright people. One kid is an IT, and he's a programmer, and he's just basically been ruined. He got sent to juvenile prison for a year just for moving a little bit of weed between him and his friends, because he used to buy sort of 10 grams, and they'd split it, and he got busted. So and his parents were the cause of it all. So these things keep happening all the time. We just want to put an end to it, to make sure it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a familiar story, actually. I have, in fact, even in my family, my mother once called me with a similar request about my little brother. And She also wanted to go to the police, but they also said to her, "No, don't do that. You will ruin his life. You know, it's not a criminal problem. It's a mental, it's a medical problem. You know." So luckily, she didn't, and they fixed it. But to also go back to some other things that you said, but I also see and hear from you, or see because I read the proposed regulations, is that Malta, but also other countries, they like to indeed. It's good that they look at other countries that have gone before them or made steps before them, but then they also seem to copy the bad things that are in these other countries. For example, this that they say a club cannot be 250 meters of a school. This is something that's Dutch. This is why many coffee shops in Amsterdam have got to close. For example, the Mellow Yellow was part of that. But
Yeah.
the stupid thing about making a rule like that, it seems to make sense, but in reality, it does not, because you can only enter a coffee shop or you like a club in Malta. You will only be able to enter it if you're at least 18 years old. So you will have to show your ID. So uh, people who are going to school will not be able to go in there. You know, it's and also, for example, with the Mellow Yellow, that one got closed because there was something like a university nearby there in 250 meters where people would go to school who are over 18 years old. But still, this 250 meters thing counted. And later, it also got copied by Barcelona for the with the clubs and shit. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, you're right. I mean, I think they go for these things. I try to work it out sometimes, and I have to. The only way to do this is to put yourself in their shoes. You know, and I can see that. I think they're doing things like this just to keep the naysayers happy. You know, say, oh, listen, we're doing what we're doing, but there's no smoking outside, and you can't let your children see it at home. And when you're growing, no one can see it, and no public consumption. And it's got to be 250 meters, you know. And they put all these things after they've mentioned all to what us are the positive steps. Then they have to mention these things to keep the conservatives happy. But like you said, it doesn't make sense. You know, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. I mean, my kids go to school around the corner to the public school, and there's an alcohol shop within, I would say, 50 meters.
exactly.
You know, and it's all glassed off with bottles of alcohol showing through the window. You know, it's not
Yeah,
like and my no one is going to say. I mean, my kids are very young. They're 7 years old, so they're not going to be going in there. But I have gone in to buy some tobacco with my children. It's a big deal, you know. I don't think they're going to be, you know, become alcoholics all of a sudden. So
yeah,
yeah, there's always things like this that don't make sense. And so, I mean, you know, the only thing I can think is that, look, you know, they're a little bit worried because we're going from, you know, from a very prohibitive policy to one which is completely different. So they say, listen, we got to, you know, people are going to think we're going crazy. And I mean, if you live in Malta and you've been following sort of what's going on, you'll see that, you know, a lot of people have come out, especially associations, groups, you know, like Caritas, which are a Catholic group, that they also look after people with substance abuse disorder. And so they've been pretty vociferous about what's going on. You know, they're always invited to every show. It's like we can't have a debate on cannabis without them having to invite someone that's just going to say, "Oh, this is a terrible idea." And so it's hard to move forward. But in the grand scheme of things, when you think about when you actually have the government on your side and the government and the actual minister, you know, coming out and saying, "Listen, we're going to change things," and they've actually come out and he's actually come out and said, "Listen, the war on drugs has failed." So I don't know of any actual people within government that have with, you know, in Europe that have come out and said sort of these things, people with actual power to change things. So, you know, it's that's kind of the situation we're in. I think that we, you know, given once this bill goes through and sort of maybe in a year's time and we come back and we start you know, start getting invited on TV again for discussions, it will be, listen, you know, this is what we're doing, this is, you know, the benefits of what we're doing, and this is how we work, and then we'll begin to understand, and then maybe we can have, you know, a good honest chat about cannabis the way we should be talking about cannabis, you know, about how it's grown, what strain, all the different types of strains, and how they can help different people with different ailments, and even cancer patients that are using the Rick Simpson oil, and why, and maybe help people to make their own, since they're going to be growing. And if there are medical patients, then they should be given more plants to grow, because they need to make these oils which need more plants. So they need to understand. Listen, this guy's growing 25 plants, 50 plants, because he's making oil and he's got bloody cancer. So leave him alone. That's what I mean. Stop trying to create trouble. This is just a guy trying to help himself, And you know what? If he can't help himself and doesn't know how to do it, then the associations should take it upon themselves and make sure that these people can get what they need, at least at cost price, because I've got friends. I've got a friend who's got cancer, and he's getting his stuff apparently from Holland. He's getting his Rick Simpson oil, and it comes in a syringe, and he takes a little drop a day, but it's costing him 700 or 800 euros, just for one syringe full. So, we need to stop this, and we need to start, providing this medicine for people that really need it. Because at the end of the day, what is cannabis? Cannabis it's community and it's compassion.
Yeah. There's actually two things that come to mind. First thing I wanted to quickly mention is this thing about that you cannot see the homegrown, or you're not allowed. You will not be You should not have your homegrown be seen from outside. Is something that they've also taken from Canada, for example, and that's even here. That's why many people have moved to growing inside, and even in California. That's why the whole thing started with the whole growing inside thing, because you can see it from outside if you grow outside.
I know it's ridiculous, but I think and I spoke to the minister about this, and he's always, to be honest, he's like, look, we've got a lot of associations that are strong ones, that are against what we're doing, so we need to kind of strike a balance here, and I'm saying, okay, and he's saying, look, in the near future, things can change. We can talk about grounds for possession and possession at home and things like that. And I said, listen, but if we're going to start off like this, these things need to happen fast. I said, because we're going to just start ending up with court cases, and then we're going to have to start campaigning, and take it to the streets again because some guy got arrested, So I said, let's try and fix it now, so we can make it go through and make it really strong. So the things that we need to fix in the future will be things that we can't even think about now, because we don't, we haven't experienced them yet. So those are the things that I would like to fix in the future. The things that we don't know are going to happen right now. If we look at the bill, we say, listen, Mr. Minister, you've got this, that, and this that don't make sense. Let's fix them now. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to push to make sure that when the law actually goes through, it's been bettered the way we're trying to suggest.
Now, earlier you also already mentioned medicinal cannabis, and I've been following the news from Malta for a while, and I'm reading stories like that Malta gave the green light to export medicinal cannabis buds, and that they are already exporting this. How is this medicinal cannabis industry? How are you looking at this then?
Look, one of the things that we at ReLeaf is basing our whole campaign on is to keep. We kind of knew that, look, we were going to get close, and that something like this was going to happen. But obviously, we wanted to make sure that the big business didn't come in and take over, like it did in the medical cannabis industry. The medical cannabis industry was built around profit and nothing else. It's got nothing to do with compassion. It's got nothing to do with community. It's about people wanting to make money quickly. And we had some conferences over here, medical cannabis conferences. And I attended these. I managed to get some free tickets because I wouldn't have gone because the tickets were so expensive. But so I went in then. I said, okay, let me see. It was around the time we had it was 2019, around November, something like that. And we had just published our proposal for a regulated market. So my main aim was go there and see if I can garner support within the international community. And there were a few people that were interested in the community itself, they were more interested in, okay, shares, stocks, wow, this is, on the stock market, and we've got this company, it's worth 5 billion euros and blah, 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 blah. And they hadn't even sold 1 gram of cannabis yet. And they were already worth this amount of money, So it was quite sickening, to be honest. But having said that, I did make a couple of good contacts, not many, but a couple, mainly from drug science, of Professor Nat fame. And so these are the type of people, these charities are interested in what we're doing, because they know that we're not sort of kind of anti-big business. We want to make sure that the community takes over this type of, let's say, industry, if we want to call it industry. Let the community run it. Let's not make this some big business, multi-billion euro thing. The money's always going to be there, because when someone goes in, if it's a social club or if it's an association, someone's going to go in and buy some cannabis, and then hopefully the associations with that money can sort of reinvest in people more than anything else, but also in better products and better facilities. So yes, medical cannabis obviously took off in Malta. There were about 22 companies that applied to open up factories here, and as far as I know, I think about 20, probably more, got the license. But
Wow,
but
that's a
what
lot.
what these people are, I mean, these and they're sort of the biggest ones in the world, I mean, Aurora and all these ones, the ones that are worth way too much money. And what they're going to do basically is import cannabis, raw cannabis, and then repackage it and move it around Europe. So what happens is that the factories that are being built here have to be up to EU GMP standard, which means that you basically have to invest millions just to build your facility. And obviously that those millions then get passed on to the patients. So these movements started to happen in Malta before any patient was able to access medical cannabis at all. So we had this situation where we had factories being built and lots of billions of euros being splashed all around and talked about. And but at the end of the day, your medical cannabis patient here in Malta was buying his weed from the Albanian mafia or something. So it was very sad to see this happening. So we really wanted to make sure that when we were talking about the rec market, recreational market, we did the complete opposite of this. And there was quite a big chance that the same thing was going to happen. That so basically we'll just get another corporate takeover, and you're buying your weed from these big businessmen that are not interested in quality and would put big prices on, like happened in Canada basically in the first couple of years. And so we needed to make sure that our campaign was aimed at this, and to make sure that it was, like I said before, community based. And I think, on the whole, when you look at the bill, you'll see that this actually has come true. So one of the big positives is that that there's going to be associations looking after this. So it is the community. We have people over here that haven't really understood that. I think government need to be pushing that more. And also, one of the major things we pushed for as well was expungement of criminal records, which they did take on board as well. And for me, that is
very good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the most important thing in the whole bill, because we have so many people contacting us, like I mentioned before, that are saying, "Oh man, I've got this court case coming up. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got this problem, got that problem." So now these people will be able to, if they were caught within the bracket of 28 grams, so that 1 ounce, they will be able to hopefully have their criminal record cleaned. So even if they were growing 4 plants or less, they will have a clean record again, and they can start from scratch. So this, for me, was the number one issue. So I'm glad that went through.
Yeah, 100%. My final question. I think is going to be about tourism, because I've been speaking with my colleague about Malta, and he has actually visited it before. And wherever he goes, he likes to smoke. So, question, of course, is this going to be possible, for tourists to go to Malta and have a smoke and then go to a club and stuff?
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, they're not going to be allowing, as you mentioned before, smoking on site. But something we want to change, and we will. But tourism in Malta, cannabis tourism, will tourists be allowed to come to Malta and maybe join a club on a temporary basis, or association on a temporary basis, like for a week or something? Definitely, it would be absolutely ridiculous to not allow that, because then you're just creating a new niche for the tourists. I mean, people just start selling to the tourists. So it doesn't make sense to prohibit anyone really from from obtaining good quality cannabis. Look, I know there have been issues in the past, like in Amsterdam or wherever that we've read. I mean, they don't want these type of tourists to come and vomit and puking all over the place, and mixing it with alcohol and stuff like that. I mean,
Problem is
the
the
way I see
alcohol,
it
not the
is,
weed.
yeah, but no, but I know that these, I don't know, it was some mayor that came out with this or something, but there was some sort of uproar about it. I remember in Amsterdam, that they didn't want to attract the tourists, and then they tried to ban the tourists, and
They
which
still have
obviously I
done.
don't agree with. Yeah,
They will not be able to. You cannot
yeah.
you cannot tell the English to not come there anymore, to no longer come to Amsterdam and to no longer smoke weed. They will still continue to come to Amsterdam and they will still continue to smoke weed. So it's all nonsense, and it will not happen. I can assure you.
No, I know. I mean, if it will happen or not, I don't know, but I definitely agree with you that it's ridiculous. But every now and then you get this sort of, I don't know, maybe it's right-wing mentality, people that think, oh, let's ban, or
He's
let's,
left wing, the mayor of Amsterdam.
excuse me.
She's actually left wing, the mayor of Amsterdam. That's so
Oh my
strange
God.
about it.
So I mean, I don't understand.
She's a
I,
green politician even.
no. So, sometimes they might have people probably, complaining in their ear all the time, so they say they want to make them happy. But I think tourism doesn't necessarily have to revolve around actually purchasing the cannabis only. You can have cannabis-friendly hotels or beaches or tours. You can go and see. I think it would be actually more enjoyable to come to Malta in winter and visit, since you can't really use the beach in winter. That we have some amazing historical places you can visit. Built by the knights. We've got bastions all around our main ports. We've got the, places where the Inquisitor's palace, where they used to torture people that might have, used blasphemy or something. So it's all that. We've got Mdina, which is an old little town, built by the Arabs back over 1,000 years ago. So there's all this beautiful history, and I think it'd be fantastic to be able to have sort of cannabis tourism, where you can consume cannabis, maybe even if not in the public, and in a safe space before, and go on your tour. And the possibilities are endless.
Okay. Yeah, that was already the answer that I expected to hear. But yeah, I hope maybe to visit Malta one day. It had not been part of my plans, but now it's the second time I get to speak to someone from Malta in a short time. So who knows? Is there anything that we've forgotten to talk about, or you wanted to say, or you want to ask, or?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're very welcome to come to Malta anytime you want, and don't worry, we'll look after you. And second of all, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm really trying, I really wish will happen, is that when, be it Luxembourg, Malta, Switzerland, whoever is first, I mean, doesn't matter. But let's begin to watch, these dominoes start to fall, and just see the liberalization of cannabis around Europe. Hopefully, we all agree on a system where there won't be some big corporate takeover, and that we really can get it run by the community themselves. So a little bit of self-regulation there, but with obviously within boundaries. And I think this is going to be happening within the next few years, because it takes that one first domino to fall. Then I mean, I'm pretty confident that we're going to see big change within the next few years.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope the same. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking part in my podcast. And
Thank you, Mara. Thanks for inviting us. We always appreciate the space. We're a small little NGO. We're actually probably a micro NGO. We've had our Facebook page attacked by the Conservatives, so we're not even allowed to boost a post. We get most of the newspapers here aren't interested in what we have to say because it goes against their beliefs. So yeah, the more space we can get, the better. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
all right, sounds good. Have a good day.
Thank you.